signs someone is emotionally immature and doesn't know it. Because emotional immaturity rarely looks the way people expect it to. Most people picture emotional immaturity as someone throwing tantrums or storming out of rooms. But in adults, it almost never looks like that. It looks like someone who gives backhanded apologies. Someone who makes your emotions feel like an inconvenience. Someone who is never, in any conflict, actually wrong. It's quieter than people expect, and far more exhausting. Emotional maturity is the ability to experience emotions fully, regulate them without suppressing or exploding, and take genuine responsibility for how your behavior affects others. It develops throughout childhood and adolescence, but only if the environment supports it. If a child grows up in a home where emotions were punished, dismissed, or modeled badly, that development gets interrupted. The emotional age and the chronological age stop matching. The first sign is a broken relationship with accountability. Emotionally immature people struggle to apologize cleanly because a real apology requires tolerating guilt, sitting with the knowledge that you hurt someone and letting that matter. For someone with emotional immaturity, guilt feels threatening rather than informative. So the apology becomes a negotiation. I'm sorry, but you also. I'm sorry you felt that way. The structure of an apology without the substance. The goal is to exit the discomfort, not to repair the relationship. The second sign shows up in conflict. When you bring a need or an emotion to an emotionally immature person, the conversation quickly shifts away from you. Not necessarily because they're selfish, though that can be part of it, but because their nervous system gets activated by your distress and needs to manage itself first. There's no bandwidth left to hold space for you. Your feelings become a threat to regulate rather than an experience to acknowledge. This is why so many people in relationships with emotionally immature partners end up feeling like they're not allowed to have needs. It's not always that the other person is cruel. It's that every time needs enter the room, something shuts down. The third sign is the pattern of never being wrong. Emotional maturity requires a self-concept stable enough to withstand criticism, to hear, "You hurt me," without interpreting it as, "You are a bad person." Emotionally immature people don't have that stability yet. So criticism activates defensiveness, deflection, or counterattack. The conversation stops being about what happened and starts being about survival. By the end of every argument, somehow it's your fault, or both of your faults equally, or the topic has shifted so many times that you've lost track of where you started. It's important to understand that emotional immaturity isn't the same as narcissism, and it isn't a permanent condition. It's a developmental gap, and gaps can be closed, usually with therapy and significant motivation. The problem is that emotionally immature people often don't recognize themselves in the description, because recognizing it would require the very self-awareness they're still developing. If this describes someone in your life, a partner, a parent, a friend, the most useful shift isn't to try to make them understand. It's to stop explaining yourself to someone who isn't equipped yet to hear it. That's not giving up. That's understanding the situation clearly. Psychologists call this emotional dysregulation, the inability to manage emotional responses in ways that are flexible, proportional, and appropriate. And it's one of the most common sources of relational pain that almost nobody has a name for. If this explained a dynamic you've been living, subscribe. Every week, I break down the psychology behind why people do what they do. Because naming something is the beginning of changing it.